welcome to Twinning on Monday. Today's cards features the stamp set called Eucalyptus Fantasy from the Pinkfresh Studios. And here is the stamp. It has some beautiful eucalyptus stamps. This is quite an older set, but I'm just giving you ideas of how you can take your existing, maybe a wreath stamp or something that you may have in your stash, that you can actually create multiple cards with different designs. And that's the idea behind the series, is to show you multiple ways of creating a card using the same stamp set. Many a times we do buy stamp sets and probably use it just once and put it aside, but I would encourage you to look at your stamps, not just make one card, but make different cards, different designs, because that not only increases your ability to design and craft, but also you are using your products to its fullest. So here I've gone ahead and actually stamped the wreath image from the stamp set onto a vellum cardstock using gold VersaFine marker, and then I'm embossing it with some gold embossing, and you can see here how that's come out. Then I've taken some Copic markers and I'm turning this cardstock around and I'm going to start coloring it. My idea for this is to create kind of like a stained glass effect. Actually, I don't know what to but it looks very stained glassy kind of, or maybe like a watercolor on glass effect. And then I just took two different shades of one is like a bluish green and the other one is green, and here you can see the second one. I'm just going to do two different leaves so that I don't want you to sit down and watch me color the whole thing. So you're basically just dabbing the colors so that it gives you that watercolor effect. And then you can see here I've gone ahead and completed the entire wreath in that same order. And here I'm just doing the last bit of few leaves here. All I'm doing is again adding the dark color, and then I'm just going to, and you can see I'm not kind of how you would use a Copic on a paper. I'm not doing that. I'm just kind of dabbing these inks. So when you dab, they create that movement, and you can see how they look just like you've watercolored it. And then I'm going to take the coordinating die for this stamp and I'm going to die cut this. Now this particular image actually not only cuts the outer circle, but also it has an inner die which makes the wreath look like a wreath with a hole in the middle, if that makes sense. And that's the wreath that we've created, and I'm going to keep it aside. And I've taken a top folding white note card and I'm getting ready to place my sentiment. And for that I want to make sure that I am placing the wreath where it should be, and then I have the place to add the sentiment. And for the sentiment, again, I have used a stamp from the same stamp set, and I can't remember what it's called. I think it says, oh, thank you for your gracious hospitality. And I'm going to stamp that again with Versamark and then heat emboss it using gold embossing powder. You can see here very quick, I will be done. There you go. And then I'm going to, so I ran out of some gold ink, so I had to create my own. So I'm just going to take some Perfect Pearls here. Actually, the result was so much prettier than using just metallic gold powder. So I'm taking two different shades of gold here, an antique gold and just a pure gold. And I'm adding some water and I'm diluting it and creating it to a paint consistency. I thought it looked more antique brass color. I wanted it to be gold, so I went ahead and added a little bit more of the gold powder. And here I'm just splattering. And as I'm splattering this paint, I'm making sure that I don't go towards a whole lot towards the sentiment. I want the concentrated paint spots to be only on the top side of the card. So I wanted a few big spots as well, so I added some using my brush. And here you can see how that is flowing downwards from, it's the splatter is heavy on the top and it's becoming lighter as it comes down. And to adhere this piece of vellum, I'm making sure that I'm adding my liquid glue only to the places of the vein of this eucalyptus wreath, so that I can hide the glue, so it's not visible. Again, as I said, this is vellum, so glue is quite visible. And then I've just taken a strip of this blue cardstock which matches the colors of the wreath in there, and I just wanted to bring some color to it, and that completed the first one. The second one here, I've gone ahead and taken this arch die set. This is actually from Hutson, and it cuts the inner part and the outer part. And I've gone ahead and cut one in gold and the other one in vellum. Then I've also taken the smaller size of that arch die set, and I've cut it in the center of a white cardstock. I have to tell you, this card making was a really, it was errors after errors. I did not, some of the pieces of the card I did not videotape. I didn't realize my video had stopped. Anyway, I went ahead and stamped and colored those eucalyptus and leaves on white cardstock and used the same copy colors and added and then die cut them using a die cut machine. I mean, using the coordinating die. And then I took the vellum cardstock with the vellum arched cardstock, and I added the largest piece on the left corner, and then I just went ahead and trimmed it to the size of the trimmed it on the edge of the arch, if that makes sense. And the remaining I added to the right corner at the bottom, and then I also had some individual pieces which I just tucked in. Here actually I added this piece using foam tape and glue, and this is where all the mistakes started. Anyway, so I'm just going to adhere this vellum piece to my arch. Again, as that arch is a smaller piece and the vellum is a larger arch, so I could easily adhere that to the back. Because I had foam, my vellum was not adhering flat. But that didn't stop me. I continued making errors after errors, and I kept everything so that you could see how you could salvage a card without getting rid of all the hard work that you have done. So I went ahead and added some thin glue strip around this because I wanted to make it into a shaker card. Probably another mistake. I should have just left it as a vellum. Or if you were to do a shaker card, here are some things that you need to avoid. Okay, and I'll tell you as we move on. And I went ahead and added some more foam tape so that they're all in the same level, and then added some gold sequins. Now, I should have taken the powder tool and gone to the edges of the inside edge of the foam and taken away the gluiness, because all of those sequences actually got stuck to the sides of my foam tape. So don't make that mistake like I did. Go ahead and glue it with a powder tool, and then I added a green cardstock behind it. I also had cut the inner side, like that frame, in a green cardstock for that inner arch, and then I adhered that to the inside just to give it a clean. Okay, here is the next mistake. I wanted to stamp the large the border of eucalyptus stamps. Now keep in mind there are layers of cardstock and foam tapes at the back of this, and I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I could do it, but you can see here I kept all the mistakes so you can see that. So I went ahead and tried to stamp this using the same process. I wanted it just to be gold lined embossing out there, so I put the powder tool and then did the Versamark, went ahead and stamped it, and when I went to and I forgot which way the piece went. It's crazy. Anyway, so when I went to add the gold embossing powder, there wasn't enough impression done by the embossing powder, and you can see here how splotchy it was. and I was so mad at it. Then I just took away that using a powder tool, and I added enough powder to take away that Versamark, um, you know. And then I decided maybe it's easier to do it on a stamp block, individual stamps, instead of using that large one. And probably I have a better control of that. So I went through that process again. Now keep in mind, this red white cardstock is the same one that I added the big one and it did not work. Okay. So I'm adding that powder to powder, a lot of powder, so it takes away the previous mark from the Versamark, right? And here I start to add the gold again, and it was the same thing. I was so mad, so I went ahead and made another piece that goes above it, and this time I added the stamp before. So here's the thing: if you want to make this card again, please stamp your top card or your top frame before you add it to your card, before you add the foam tapes. Otherwise, you will be doing the same mistakes that I have been doing so far. Anyway, you will continue seeing my mistakes over and over again, but I salvaged it. I was not ready to give up on this card or throw this card away. And I encourage you to see ways to salvage your card that you may think is not going the right direction. And most often than not, you can actually salvage your cards. Anyway, so now I did this, and this time, of course, the gold embossing worked beautifully the way I wanted it, and I was very happy with this. Now I went ahead and added this to the top of that frame. Of course, when I added it, it wasn't very flush, so I just cut the extra bits off from this side. So here you can see I'm just adding this piece, just making sure the center is aligned. You know, you want to make sure that your center, that frame is aligned. Rest everything, if there is an overhang, no problem, you can just chop it off. And you can see that little bit of an overhang at the bottom. There you go. And I'm just going to take my scissors and then get rid of that. Now you can see it's nice and clean. Now I wanted to add a sentiment on the vellum using an acrylic stamp. And there's this hello stamp in it. Before that, I added the gold frame around it as well. Sorry. And this acrylic stamp, again, the same problem. The vellum is glued over a foam tape, so I cannot stamp that. And I tried in a different position and I didn't like it. So I'm sorry, do that before you do anything else. So I had to use another die cut. This is an older die cut from W+9, which I went ahead and cut using white cardstock 4 times and once with gold glitter cardstock. So the white cardstock, I layered them one over the other just to make them chunky. I didn't have the patience to cut the foam and do all the fiddling. So this time I was a little smart here and I did layer these hello dies to create that chipboard style sentiment. Anyway, I was getting irritated with glue stuck in my hand and I was constantly cleaning up. It was just crazy anyway. And here I'm just using the gold glitter hello and I'm just offsetting it a bit so that you can see that slight gold peeking under the hello. And I wanted to pull the gold that is on the arch, that glitter gold, somewhere else as well. And you can see here that little peak of that gold. And then I went ahead and adhered that to the vellum piece. And that pretty much finished the making of the card itself. And then all that was left to do was to adhere this piece on a top folding note card. This did become quite a chunky card just because of all the mistakes I made. But when you make it, if you avoid all those mistakes, you will be fine. And then I added a few glitter because do you see those little glue stains that I got because of my sticky fingers? I had to cover them. And the way to cover them was to add these beautiful crystals. And that took care of the glue problem. So you can see here, I really did not give up on this card. And again, I really hope you do not throw away your hard work without trying to make do with it. And here you can see the two finished cards. Aren't they just pretty? I love them so much. And I'm really glad I persevered. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and to another edition of Twinning on Mondays. Hope we've inspired you to look at your stamps in multiple ways. And I will see you next time. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.